and get plenty of them too. You're gonna be on your feet the majority of the time, and you're gonna need to swap them out pretty often just to stay dry. If you can, get wool. And don't dress to impress. This is a dirty job. I remember one girl came in a pantsuit and hardly lasted a day and a half. Another time a guy brought his whole wardrobe. 4 suitcases. Ridiculous, really. Once you're out there to sea for 3 weeks or more, no one's gonna give a shit what you look like. If smoking tobacco, make sure to bring your own. And don't share. It's expensive up there and you ain't there to make friends. Remember, the day and night cycle is a little different in Alaska, and it's gonna take time for you to adjust. You're gonna have sleepless nights. You're gonna see things. I know I have. You're gonna meet a lot of idiots, but focus on the reason that you're there. It's a hard job working long hours and no contact with anyone in the world except your fellow deckhands. But it's worth it in the end for that paycheck. Find a captain that isn't a pushover and isn't trying to be the next Ahab. I know beggars can't be choosers, but there are literally tons of these jobs available and they hire anyone. I had a criminal record myself, and the ship that I found a home with only asked a few basic questions. Like, could I withstand being on my feet for 15 hours a day? See, I told you the socks were important. And did I understand that this job was a matter of life and death? So be open and honest about any record that you have. It can go a long way to impress the companies who are basically giving you free room and board. My buddy Eddie said that he prefers doing the processing plants on land, but not me. Most of those end up eating at your pocketbook with hidden fees and wasting time waiting for work. I like to get it done and get back home. The high seas are the place for me. I expect that I'll likely earn a little over $20,000 while I'm here, so it's worth the headache. I can basically be off my main job for half the year and still make a decent living. Now, of course, these are just your basic tips. And I guess it's not really fair to only share those and not include the basic day-to-day affairs of life. Make sure you bring some Dramamine patches to help you cope with the seasickness. Be prepared to be bored for the most part. There are some days that you may catch absolutely nothing, and others where you'll think it's the mother lode. That's just the job. It's unpredictable. On average, there are over 400 boats that go up the Bering Sea this time of year, so finding one isn't that difficult. Just grab a list of names and a dartboard and you can't go wrong. October 6th. The Silver Beauty. That's the ship that I got with last year. My crew of misfits that I had to call family for 2 months. I managed to sign up with them again this year, and I'm glad to not be the greenhorn. There's 6 of us aboard the ship this time, myself included, and while most ships need about double that many men aboard, we are the exception to every rule. I sailed with them last year and I nearly lost my life. That's because of an incident that happened while I was working on the cages. We actually lost one of our deckhands, Unlucky Pete. A crane malfunctioned and smashed his leg because he had pushed me out of the way. We were over 32 miles from shore, so he bled out. I was now the one that got that moniker, told that if it hadn't been for Pete, I would be crushed entirely. We couldn't even offer the poor sap anything for the pain, so we just laid in his cot and cried in agony until he died. As I board the ship, I can still hear his moans near that wretched piece of machinery, blaming me for living. I made sure to ask for a job further from the crane this year. October 11th. We are miles away from civilization now. Only the darkness of the ocean to comfort my disquieted thoughts. In case you didn't know, just about any sailor worth his salt is a little superstitious, and Captain Reich Sullivan is definitely more that way than most. Sully decided to take us over toward the Russian border, where a lot of Opelio were nestled. But he did so near the beginning of the season, and that's when the storms are really rough. Still, we all knew that if we could catch a big load here, it might mean that we could take it easy during the colder weeks. Of course, that's honestly just wishful thinking, because Sully works us twice as hard to get double the pay, with double the pain along the way. And ordinarily that's okay with me. But this time, something was different. It started around day 4 of the early harvest. It was my turn to cast the line and haul up the cages, and the sea just wasn't cooperating. If you've ever been out there when this sort of wave hits, then you know that one false move can crush your whole body. And that's if you're fortunate. So there I was, wearing my full rain gear alongside the greenhorn of the year named Kent, trying my best to stay standing as the boat tipped and rolled. And Kent wasn't doing so well with the different shifts in the water, which made it double the work for me to watch him and to handle the line. What normally took about 15 minutes was taking longer, also because of the storm. And then finally we managed to lug the cage up, only to find it wasn't just crabs that we had brought up from the water. A crash of lightning illuminated the sky behind the cage to give us a better look at it. But even in that brief moment, it was difficult to really say for sure what it was. Hank, a senior deckhand, unlatched the cage and let the crabs spill out so that we could get a better look at our discovery. It's a corpse. Kent realized once we had managed to pull it from the mash. I shined a flashlight over it to confirm what he said, surprised to find that most of the flesh was blackened but still relatively fresh, as though the body had been mummified. "Captain on deck," Dylan, our navigator, declared as Sully came down to investigate our find. "What is that thing?" he muttered, disgusted by the sight and smell. The men mumbled different responses, no one daring to confess that we weren't sure what it was. "Whatever it is, we should toss it back overboard," Hank decided. Steven, the crane operator who was basically Sully's second in command, had another idea. "Well, hold on, Captain. Maybe this thing might be worth something. Could be a reward for the authorities," he suggested. Sullivan paused and rubbed the stubble on his chin for a moment as we all stared at the corpse, trying to decide what to do. "Hey, did anybody notice that the storm died down?" Kent asked nervously. I remember seeing that the sky was actually clear. It was extremely calm. Like suddenly, the sea had just gone quiet. "Oh, it's a bad omen," Dylan muttered. Sully made the sign of the cross. "Whatever it is, we'll take it with us back to Dutch Harbor next week. The Coast Guard can sort it out," he decided. "So, what do we do with it until then?" I remember asking. It felt weird considering that for the most part, our storage was designed for nothing besides rows and rows of sorted crab. "You can't stay in the cage. I bet they'd eat up what little is left of them," Hank remarked as he gestured toward the haul that we had brought up with the corpse. We have a few crates in the hull. Take the thing down there and store it in one. Probably just some poor soul that came out here to try and make a few bucks like us. God rest his soul," Steven decided. Sully agreed with the decision and then ordered all the men back to work except me and Dylan, and we got to be the corpse haulers. "And bring that stretcher over here," I told the greenhorn as I kept staring at the mangled body. Something about it unsettled me more than I cared to admit. And call it a sixth sense if you will, but I knew that the body couldn't possibly be from another fishing boat. It looked older, a lot more so than any of us could imagine. And Dylan mirrored my fears as we moved the body over to the stretcher, and he commented, "This corpse is a lot older than just a few seasons back." Look at the decay. That's like what you would see over in Egypt. It's gotta be at least 100 years old or something. How is it even still down here? Maybe the algae and brine made it age faster, I suggested. It was a flimsy excuse, but I didn't want to focus on it any more than I needed to. The longer that we were here with it, the more uneasy I felt. We just need to go seal this thing up and get back to working, I told him. We made it to the hull and I found one of the crates, motioning Dylan to help me lift the corpse up into it. As we did, the whole ship tipped again and one of the bone fragments scraped against Dylan's leg. Instinctively, he cursed and dropped the corpse, the mangled remains collapsing into the box as I checked his wound. Best get Hank to check that out once we're in calmer waters, I suggested. We finished sealing up the crate and got back on deck. I remember thinking that it seemed like the sky was more gray than usual, as though the entire ocean was an ominous warning for us about our discovery. But I tried to push the superstitions aside and focus on the work. And Dylan couldn't though. The rest of the day he seemed dizzy and sidetracked. He kept favoring his left side and sometimes wound up accidentally letting a line out when he was supposed to be towing. I knew that he was going to hear an earful from Sully when we stopped for the day. "What's gotten into you, man? I give you one simple job." Sully screamed as Dylan leaned over the edge and started to hurl. Turning the greenhorn around, I couldn't help but to notice a patch of his skin seemed to have blackened and bruised, the same area where he had been damaged by the corpse. "Jesus Christ, you okay, boy?" Sully asked. Dylan's eyes rolled back in his head and he collapsed on the deck as the next wave crashed into us. I stood frigid in terror as he shook violently as though having a seizure. I wasn't sure, but it sounded like he was saying something, although it just sounded like gibberish. Still, the entire incident left me even more tense than before. What we had brought up from the waters was evil. Hank and Steven got him below deck to help him recover as I finished up the haul with Sully as he steered us toward a calmer segment of the strait that we were in. He was adamant that we weren't leaving the area despite Dylan's injury, but by nightfall it seemed like he was changing his tune because of how bad it looked. The entire leg might need amputation," Hank said as I checked on them. Dylan's leg was green and flesh was falling off in the area where the bone had scraped him. It made me sick to even look at it, but I did mention to the captain my concern about the corpse. "That thing might have parasites or bacteria on it," I said after I explained how Dylan had gotten hurt. It was unnerving to see the greenhorn shake uncontrollably at random times, but perhaps more so when I realized that Hank seemed to have had no clue what could be ailing him. "Never seen a sickness like this in the 32 years I've been at sea," he admitted. "Nothing spreads that fast." "Oh, can you perform a brief autopsy on the corpse? Maybe get a few samples," Sully suggested. All of us were hesitant to get anywhere near the body again, but we knew better than to argue with the captain. I went with Hank to the hull, grabbing a flashlight, and he got a crowbar to open the crate as we approached it. "And this is the one, you're sure?" Hank asked, checking it. I felt my heart drop. The seal had been broken, the metallic frame of the crate ripped off, and on the inside where the corpse had just been hours ago, I saw scratches and claw marks. They were fresh. Neither of us said anything as I moved the flashlight around the room cautiously. Suddenly, I no longer felt alone. Somewhere in these shadows, I was certain that we were being watched. "Go tell the captain and get a gun," I told Hank as we slowly backed away from the crate toward the stairs. To my left, I heard something rattle. A piece of metal gently rolling across the tiles of the deck. My flashlight focused on it, and I saw what looked like little droplets of blood trailing toward the side of the boat. There was a small porthole here, and Hank and I both turned white as ghosts when we saw that the glass was broken and something had pushed its way out of the window, leaving a mess of tattered flesh and bodily fluids behind. I went to the next porthole over and stuck my head out, looking up the side of the ship. I could just barely see indentations on the metal frame. Something had crawled its way toward the stern of our ship. And then I saw it. A dark silhouette dangling from the side of the frame, just near the crane. Carefully, I pulled my light up to see its lengthy, half-rotting body. It was larger than I had anticipated, as though once it had become reanimated, it had grown twice in size. A splash of waves hit me, causing me to drop the flashlight and cuss, and the creature turned its head toward me, revealing a ghastly, slanted face with elongated, torn ears, misshapen nostrils, and jagged teeth. The last thing that I heard as Hank pulled me back in was a shriek, like it was on the hunt. Hank didn't even need to ask what I had seen. My trembling features told the whole story. And then a long, blackened arm reached through the porthole with a snarl, its large claw-like fingers grabbing at the older man and slamming him toward the wall. I shouted his name as I heard the reanimated corpse scream, and Hank tried desperately to get away, the monster ripping his ear off as he was continuously being pulled through the distorted metal. I grabbed the crowbar that Hank had been holding and I swung at the arm, hitting it repeatedly until at last the creature let go. Snagging him up, Hank covered his ear and tried to push away tears as we ran up the storage stairs to the open deck. I didn't turn back to see if the creature was following us, instead racing across the wet floor to where I saw Kent preparing a line and shouted, "Get inside, now!" The younger man turned to us, his eyes widening as he looked at Hank and then saw something above us. A moment later, the creature had hurled its body across the frame of the boat right on top of Kent, pushing him down and pulling his chest open like it was little more than a stuffed animal. I covered my mouth, watching as Kent begged us to help, backing away toward the mess hall. Hank and I got inside and slammed the door shut. The last thing I saw was the poor man's pleading eyes before the monster ripped them out. Steven was there still monitoring Dylan, looking confused as he saw Hank's injury and then watched me push the table over to the door to jam it shut. "What the hell? What's going on out there?" he asked. Hank sat down next to the stove, using the fire to cauterize his wound as he winced in pain, and I did my best to explain what we had just experienced. "That corpse, it isn't dead. It's like a living monster or something. It just killed Kent," I told him, trying to catch my breath. Steven gave a skeptical look, but then heard the strange, guttural noises from outside and reconsidered. "What in God's green earth is that?" he whispered as he got a look at the creature while it finished off Kent. And behind us, we heard Dylan stir and cough, hardly able to form words as he was trying to talk. I heard a single, ragged word from his parched lips. "Dragger, we have to kill it with the sea. Sink the ship if we have to," he mumbled as he tried to sit. I got a good look at his sunken features and yellowing eyes, realizing that he was almost entirely infected by the beast now. "It's inside my head, Frank. Like a termite gnawing on a log, it's skittering around in my thoughts, telling me that I need to kill you, tear your flesh apart, and feast on your bones," Dylan said as I realized Steven had wisely already strapped the boy down. How long would those restraints hold was up for debate, I realized as he lurched forward and the entire thing shook. "I will infect you next, all of you. You have to kill me and destroy this ship before it gets back to port. It's the only way," he begged. I looked out the other porthole, realizing that we were in fact moving east again. The captain made the call days ago, and he's pushing us to Dutch Harbor faster because of this mess, Stephen admitted. Where is the captain now? Hank asked as he stood up after finishing his stitching on his ear. A little dry blood leaked down his cheek as we all heard the strange monster search for a way to reach us. Up in the observatory, that thing will go after him next. Stephen realized frantically as he moved to push the table out of the way again. No, we can't leave. Out there we have nowhere to hide, I warned. Stephen pushed me away and gave the empty deck a quick glance. The two of you need to distract it. Topple the cages and make noise over on the starboard side. I'll make my way to the crane. With luck on our side, I can use that thing to knock the monster back to the waves, he decided. I gave Hank a look that told him I thought the plan was idiotic, but honestly, I couldn't think of anything better. All those tips and tricks I had managed to keep in my head for years felt useless against this living nightmare. On the count of 3, Stephen instructed, ready to race across the deck. I don't remember those words or what happened next. I focused on my task of belting across to the crab pots. I thought of all the times I had been instructed how to properly prepare them, to make sure that none of the crabs made it out. All of that was now going out the window as I released the first and second latch, and then pushed barrels of raw meat onto the floor, anything to confuse the monster. Across the boat, I saw Stephen hurrying up the crane ladder, shouting at us to make more noise as my eyes searched for any sign of the drogger. It was standing there amid the bait, almost 8 feet tall. It looked healthier now, leaner and more strong than I cared to admit, but every bit as vicious. The boat rocked as it moved toward us, and I tried to think of what to do. And get to the captain and steer us away from port. Hank ordered me, pushing me toward the observatory stairs, just as the creature made a long jump straight toward him. I didn't dare look back as I went to the captain's chambers, shouting for him to alter course. And then I saw his body, split in two against the wheel of the ship, his eyes still open in agony from what the drogger had done to him. A second later, what was left of Hank smashed against the observation glass, his innards sliding down the side of the ship, as I stared down at the seemingly unstoppable beast that stood in the center of the deck. Hank's body fell through the shattered glass, tumbling over the foghorn, which made the creature surprisingly freeze in place as if confused by the noise. I decided to hold on it further, shouting at Stephen to finish the job. The loud noise made the drogger an easy target for our crane. My mind flashed back to Lucky Pete as the metallic hook slammed against the creature, flinging it up in the air and overboard. I stood there almost in a hypnotic trance for the longest, overcome with the trauma of all that had transpired. Hours later, we have sent the corpses of Kent, Hank, and Captain Sully to the watery grave. All that remains now is Dylan. We've sequestered him in the mess hall, and Stephen and I are unsure if we can even get inside to risk finishing the job, because all we hear are the same strange noises the monster made. And Dylan is likely too far gone to be saved. But I will wait until daylight and then finish the job while Stephen focuses on getting us home. He isn't as skilled as the captain navigating these waters, but I can't think of any other solution when we are alone out here. October 15th. I woke to the sound of something hitting the water, and I stepped out on deck to see Stephen had just pushed the last of our supplies over the railing. "What is wrong with you? Are you mad?" I asked him, getting a good look at his complexion. He showed no signs of the corruption that had taken Dylan, but still clearly was losing sanity fast. "We don't know if any of this ain't cursed. Look at the sky, Frank. It's a clear day, but still as dark as the witching hour." I did as I was told, disturbed to realize that he was quite right. The sea was so calm that we couldn't even use the currents to push us, and the air was dead. All around the boat, I saw fish slowly dredging up from below. Nothing was able to stay alive as our little boat moved through the waves. We're cursed. We must kill that thing now if we hope to even have a fighting chance, he insisted. I looked across the cage floor to the mess hall. It had been eerily quiet all night. Had the transformation finished? Was Dylan in some strange hibernation? There would only be one way to find out. I went to the nearby debris from the cages and got a splintered wooden pike, grasping it firmly as I told Steven that I would finish the job. No matter what you do, move the boat south. If I get turned, I'll end myself before the infection has a chance to spread, I told him. I walked across the crate floor and flung the mess hall door open, half expecting Dylan to lunge at me when I did. To my surprise, he was instead sitting stiff on the cot across the way, his legs still shackled, but looking nothing like the boy that I had met days ago. His skin was now entirely a cool blackish blue, as though he had been bruised from head to toe, and sharp black veins ran from his neck to his creases around his blackish yellow eyes. His hair was a pale and crackly brown, and his teeth were like sharks, needling outward as he looked at me with a curious ferocity. He was at least twice as large too, the clothes hardly fitting, and leaving behind a bulging, bulk nightmare of a brute. I wasn't sure the shackling would even hold him long enough for me to get across the room and stake his heart. I can smell your fear, the boy spoke. His voice was raspy and his breath rancid. It'll all be over soon. I can free you, I told him as I took a tentative step forward. Strange. I was about to give you the same offer. Let me end your suffering, Dylan. I owe you that much. Oh, the boy you knew is gone. I am a new form, not of the living nor the dead. I walk a path meant for gods, one where suffering is not a curse but a blessing, he hissed. He stood up, the metallic clasp on his leg buckling easily. I could crush you like a twig where you stand, tear your flesh from starboard to port in a matter of minutes, and make sure you felt every single moment of it, Dylan rasped. My heart beat faster as he proved his point by crossing the room in a mere second, towering over me now. Do you know why you still live? The Draugr asked. In response, I raised the stake up and slammed it against his chest, desperate to drive it in. It didn't even make the behemoth flinch. Instead, he pulled me up like a rag doll and took the stake out, pinning me to the side of the door with it, where I hung like a sinner from the crucifix. Let me show you the wonders that I'm capable of, Dylan told me as he stepped out toward the deck, his eyes focusing on the observatory. He raised his hands up just as I saw Steven realize what was happening, and then the towering vampire transformed into a swarm of deadly flaming bats. The endless shrieking swirled about towards Steven, smashing into the glass like bullets and slicing at his flesh aimlessly. I heard him scream and beg for help, but there was no one left. It didn't stop for hours. I hung there against the hull of the Silver Beauty for a day, starving and waiting for Dylan to return and finish me off. He never did. Instead, the ship hit against rocks and I found myself at the mercy of rescue workers after 3 days, looking like a mad sailor who had lost their entire crew to the merciless ocean. When they let me down, they asked me if there were any other survivors, and I thought of Dylan. I had no idea where the Draugr had disappeared to, nor why he had allowed me to live, but I told them that I knew of no one. The official report I gave claimed that a severe storm had occurred and killed the others. I had grown ill and placed myself at the mercy of the waters, hoping to join them in the depths. I was told that I would be given mandatory therapy for 2 months and small compensation for the voyage. Not anything close to what I had been promised, but honestly, I was thankful to just be alive. I called Lori from a hotel that night, blubbering like an idiot and apologizing. "Why do you keep saying that you're sorry? This isn't your fault," she kept saying. But I knew that it was different. That beast had now roamed free because of the incident on that boat. I had not acted quickly enough to kill the boy. Now all of them were dead because of me. October 17th. I received a letter telling me that a small service for the crew of the Silver Beauty would be held near the port of call where we had first left, and I left first thing at early light to pay my respects. The harbor was quite empty save for the office where I was told to wait. Inside, I saw that there were 6 coffins prepared, 1 for each of the crew. Wait, 6? I froze in place as one of the coffin lids opened and Dylan sat up and turned toward me. The others slowly did the same, revealing the undead crew members, some of whom looked like they were hardly a mangle of flesh and bones left. All of them under the thrall of their new master, who gestured toward the empty coffin on his left.
"The sea waits for us, my child. We must return and tread across the dark waters to be found once more,"
Dylan told me. My fingers touched the rim of the coffin as tears streamed down my face. "Please, I have a wife and a child on the way," I begged.
"Who else do you think I would call to cast us off?"
The Draugr responded. I heard the door to the viewing room close and my heart shuddered as I saw Lori standing there drenched in fresh blood. A hole was ruptured where our unborn had once been, and I realized that the monster had targeted her first to regain full strength, to ensure my cooperation as a dark servant. Lori crossed the threshold and offered me a knife to finish the task, and I wordlessly took it, using it on my wrists as I climbed into the coffin. "Do not fear, my love. This is only the beginning," she swore, her dead eyes smiling down at me. I shuddered and cried, fighting against the dark as the coffins closed shut. What came next was only the inescapable horrors of death. October 21st. A ship found my body 23 miles from Dutch Harbor. I am still shaking from the cold. They have questions about why I might attempt a funeral at sea for myself. I have promised that I will answer all of them once they gather the crew together. They are weary of trusting a man that they dredged up from the ocean, but I will show them the new path that has led me here. I will lead them to the dark depths that my master has prepared for